The best of 5 finals is here, and guess what? It's another familiar one. In the top left of hard lead, it is Team Liquid's Clem. And on the bottom right, we have Basilisk's Reynor. A rare time, but this is the first match for the Terran for today. Casting nothing but PvPs and PvZs. Clem had a pretty easy road, all things considered, in his bracket. Sometimes he has an easy road no matter who he goes up against. 2-0s everyone, regardless of their stature. But in this case, I would say that he had a easier road than usual. The Hero Marine didn't make it. Usually would. The Spirits, well, CVT's actually been really good, so I don't know. He didn't face max packs in the semifinals, which occasionally has happened. No, Clem actually took out Fortumi, which is to be expected. Took out Baby Marine, to be expected. Then took out Mana, to be expected. They took out Mana because Mana actually defeated Hero Marine, which is a big up for Mana. That's a really excellent result for him, but regardless. Pretty much expected for Clem. Reynor, you know, see the players that he was up against, we'd say he should have had a little bit more difficult of a time, but he 2-0'd Max Packs and he 2-0'd Showtime. Before that, he 2-0'd Disc. So I believe both players coming into these finals undefeated thus far. Last week was probably a similar scenario, since these are just some of the standout players. Max Packs, the other contender to reach the finals most of the time. It was Clem who took down Reynor 3-1, getting some justice, some revenge, whatever, from the last time these guys met in the Open Cup, which was that very, very odd 3-0 in Reynor's favor. Not because I don't believe Reynor could occasionally 3-0 Clem, just that I don't think it's usual, and certainly the way in which Clem was playing that day was not his best. And that was before Katowice. So then they didn't play, obviously, after Katowice. I guess they're still traveling or just taking a break or whatever. And they played again last week. And Clem looked as strong as ever. Reynor wasn't too far behind him, but ultimately was farther behind. That's why I lost 3-1. A couple of close games and a couple of more so bops, I suppose. I do expect something similar this time around. If Clem is playing his A game, I do favor him. And possibly another 3-1 in his favor as well. We also should be expecting, you know, 3CC and macro, macro, macro. That's exactly what he's doing. $3CC into what is always the question. That's more so the question for Reynor, who, yeah, I mean, has to be a little scared of something like a forward 2 racks, but that's kind of how Clem plays, actually. It's either 3CC or forward 2 racks, the forward 2 racks maybe being 1, maybe 2 games out of a best of 5 nowadays. And then almost nothing else. No proxy 2 racks, no 2 base 1-1-1, no 2 base all in, no kind of weird medevac opener with a couple of Marines like Yan does. No Hellbat attacks anymore. Nope. All things considered, Clem is a rather easy player to predict as far as his build order, but that doesn't mean he's easy to take on. There are still some little micro decisions that are made, even when your build order stays the same, including, but not limited to, whether or not you sack your Hellions to try and get the drone kills. Something that Clem was successful in doing so in their last meeting. A little less successful this game, however. Only 2 drones went down, all of the other ones saved by either a good pull or a building cancel, so that was actually really nice. That actually almost got the 6 drones killed. See, these 2 almost got killed. But instead, it is a total of 4, which means that Reaper killed 2? Really? That's actually the most shocking thing about it. Did not realize that Reaper was doing so much damage. But anyway, so 4 Hellions is the disappointing loss, as the Zerg player would hope to play perfectly, but it is what it is. Could have been worse. Could have been way worse, actually. On this map, I believe, is where Reynor took like 8 drones of the damage because they just really worked against him. They did not feel like helping him out. This is actually a much better start for Reynor than the last time these guys played. And further Hellion harassment seems to be limited, but a Liberator is also on the way, and the combination of these 2 things is very annoying. The micro decisions I was talking about also include how he positions his Liberator, how he moves with his Hellions, and then as well the actual Marine follow-up. So what he does with his 2 medevacs and how he uses those. And the Liberator just goes to the third base. It can hide in the corner, so it's a pretty safe place to be. Hellions looking for the drones. They get pulled away from the Liberator. That is the magical combination of things. And all the while, Clem is just happily macroing at home. Third CC on the way over. Doesn't worry about any Ling run-bys. He knows the Lings are still dealing with the Hellions. And the Liberator... Oh, maybe it can, actually. I thought it could, but I might be wrong about that. Either way, Clem loses the Liberators. That's a little unfortunate. But yeah, the Hellions don't have to go back home to defend any Ling run-bys. The SCVs just transfer on over lickety-split. And sometimes, if the Hellions are dead, if the Hellions are being really aggressive, a Terran player will be a little shy about moving that third CC over before the Marine count's high enough. But not Clem, who felt very confident and is now on his way to a Marine-based game, which we know he really gets supercharged for. Reynor has really negated most of the damage that could have come his way. It's all good and whatever. But we really have not gotten into the meat and potatoes of the game as of yet. It's really the first 16 Marines and the double drop that determines whether or not the Terran player is feeling it. And just how fast they're moving and how aggressive they're going to be, and can really set up the expectations for the best of 5. And here it comes now. 2 medevacs, 15 Marines. Terrible. Can't believe he's missing a Marine. Gets scouted by the Zelnaga. Of course, no surprises there. It's going to be a tricky position to defend if you were to be building tanks as a Terran player. Sieging them up here and then diving after this 4th has been a problem for Zerg players, but no tanks. However, there are Hellbats. That armory was a little bit faster than necessary for 2-2. So that actually is very intentional there from Clem, who almost missed micros because he's being distracted at the same exact time. But almost is the key word. He will save his SCVs. Well, 6 of them will go down at the very least, so that's still a decent run by. And then it looks like Reynor is well enough to defend back at home. So this actually went very well for Reynor. Really well-timed Ling run by. Catches Clem off guard defensively and then almost catches him off guard offensively. That would have been the beautiful combination to really put Reynor in the lead. And Clem just narrowly avoids it. Unfortunately, this means that Clem's build doesn't really work out as intended. That slightly faster armory, I think, affected maybe what could have been a slightly faster second factory. Well, no. That's not what it affects. It should affect something, though. Yeah, the second factory is literally already done, so that's a dumb statement. But it should affect something. But it just, overall, it was going to be built in about 20 seconds anyway. Usually exactly as 2-2 finishes does the armory as well. And the Hellions are still alive. So, I'm not gonna say it's wasted. And it definitely wasn't some type of super dedicated attack, that's for sure. It's gonna suck that it didn't do anything, and Clem is the one that took damage. I was a little more afraid of the friendly fire, to be honest, but the Widowmine does pop off mostly on the Zerg. Hellbat's just chilling. Off to the left, just waiting, and he run by, and once again, Reynor almost catching Clem off guard. Both these guys playing extremely fast. Reynor's creep threat now becoming an issue. Clem does need to clean that up. Another scan on the right side is necessary. Does he even have it? I'm not so sure. 4th base is finishing up, and he's trying to go pretty deep on the creep. There we go. There's that scan. But even still, left side, so many active creep tumors. Reynor actually with very good creep spread despite all the aggression that Clem has attempted to put him under anyway. Still, the engagement on creep is less than ideal, but that was a lot of banelings used right there. I don't think very efficiently. 13 banelings left over is enough, assuming this Widowmine doesn't pop off. Okay, that was a good split there from the Zerg player. But now off of creep, kind of funneling through these queens can be a little awkward. Clem is not going to find as much success as he's hoping for, but is going to pick up and look to greener pastures, perhaps the main base. There's a little bit of spore crawler wall, as Reynor has been making most of the time he faces Clem nowadays, but this one's a little far back, so the medevac should be able to unload a little bit. Hellbat's finally joining in again. I mean, I think they were intentionally placed over there to stop run-bys, but it's kind of nice to see them on the front lines, too. So an extra little bit that the banelings have to run through, and if you don't have enough banelings, you really don't have enough banelings, the Hellbat soak them up first. That's no cancel on Infestation Pit. Spawning Pool is now under fire. That is going to go down. Banelings could be focus fired if Clem was paying attention, but he's not because he's paying attention to the left side right here, thinking he had a moment, but no, it's not exactly the case. Another Baneling will collide, and Clem could have definitely done more Clem things in the both engagements, actually. In both engagements, there's an opportunity for a little bit more, either to be done or to be saved, and he kind of slipped a little bit on both. We're talking about extremely fast games, and both players really going toe-to-toe, so I'm not blaming Clem in any capacity, it just is the truth. Could have done a little bit more in the main. Could have saved a few more units on the left, but nonetheless, both players still almost maxed out. Reynor having a little bit more difficulty, obviously, with the lack of spawning pool, so that is a bummer. Also, the invitation pit has not been remade, so that is the current problem for the Zerg, is they aren't moving on. The pacing is falling behind as Clem's happily on 4 bases, moving on to a 5th. That is a lot of Hydras, with Queens coming in as the buffer as well, and the number of Marines we see here should not be good enough, but more reinforcements could be on the way. I mean, I guess for both players, I'm just looking for Reynor's Lings. Where the hell are they? They're being made right now. 42 on the way. And very, very much a mostly Hydra army here. And there's the reinforcements from the Terran, a couple of Marauders, more Widow Mines, ideally more Medivacs as well. It's very much a sustained army battle between the two, and Medivac energy is coming down as a very important factor of who wins this engagement. And it looks like Reynor with the Ling reinforcements that finally has enough to push this back. Widow Mines pop off, not too efficiently, but I don't think those Lings want to take an engagement off of creep, especially without any Banelings following them up. And Reynor is now out of gas as he makes 12 Banelings. It's going to be it for a while. Trying to still get the infestation pit, but is very much later to it than he would like. 3-3 about halfway down for Clem as he continues to just be so aggressive on the front line. Oh, friendly fire. Oh, friendly fire, part 2. Medivac's now even getting injured, as well as just being very, very low on the energy. Widow Mine drop happening at the 4th base is going to be effective. 8 drones get killed. I mean, for Widow Mine and four Widow Mines and a Medivac, maybe not exactly efficient, but bothersome nonetheless, as Clem does have the better economy. That 5th base is now a planetary. The 6th is on the way, and he does have 3-3 encroaching. He's had an upgrade lead this entire time with 2-2 versus 1-1-2. Most importantly, Reynor with the Carapace upgrade at the very least, but definitely wants his attack upgrade to finish as well. Ghosts are now on the way too, so that's going to punish Reynor's retreats. Every time you see him kind of overstep and fall back, Ghost will snipe. And Clem still is in the driving seats. He's just had the pacing of this game work out so much better for him since killing the spawning pool and killing the infestation pit. Reynor would really have loved to have been able to build Lings, you know, and then Banelings, naturally. And then also more comfortably get into a hive instead of having to narrowly avoid death on the front lines of his 5th. Now trying to grab a 6th on the efficient connections, or at least decent enough on the Marauders, but more Marines behind this, more reinforcements behind this, and plenty of Medivacs with a lot of energy as well. Would love to see Caduceus Reactor researched eventually. I'm sure that will be on the way. The hatchery not quite finished, but as it finishes, it's also very, very weak, so that could be sniped later on. Clem with 2 attacks constantly as attack on the left side, now finding a Queen, finding the drones, and possibly finding the hatchery. The Ghost soaks up some Banelings, more Banelings being focus fired right there, and then without the Banelings, the Hydras will not have enough to cover them, and that hatchery is a goner. Reynor back down to 5 bases, does at least have his 5th back to mining, but that is also very snipeable. 8 lurkers on the way, but they're 8 lurkers being built into a very defensive Zerg up against someone who is building Ghosts. It's just not the ideal situation. It'll be a slight breath, maybe, as Clem is forced to consider how to tackle the lurkers, but Reynor doesn't get to just rely on them for everything. And he needs a decent number of them, too, lest they be concaved on or just simply sniped out of existence. 11's pretty freaking good, about to be on 13. Scan ahead reveals the lurkers are ready to go, although with neither of their upgrades. It's not the best ones, honestly. But that's not a chunky enough army to take them on, so that will hold on to Reynor's 4th base. Meanwhile, the other lurkers actually went for the offensive. Very bold move for Reynor, but maybe the best tactic he can bring out right now. He did bring back such a game, I think, on this map last week with a Nidus Worm and lurkers. I think that was purely the reason they ended up winning that game, or maybe almost winning, I don't quite remember, but the lurkers definitely changed the dynamic, and the fact that he was able to afford 16 lurkers actually really surprises me. I thought max 11, and then he added 13. I was like, okay, great, and now he's even adding more? It's a good thing, though, as the ghosts are finally coming into effect. 9 ghosts available, 4 more on the way. In the grand scheme of things, the lurker counter hasn't done a tremendous amount of damage because Clem is just so damn good about macroing. His 5th base still on the... 5th base, yeah, planetary 6th. The command center up to the top right was found, so I guess that's going to go down pretty soon, but even this would-be third base might get back to mining relatively soon. Although Reynor is definitely not done being aggressive. He knows that he has a moment before Clem is totally prepared to handle the lurkers, and he's looking to use it to its fullest potential. A Nidus Rum would absolutely be clutch right now in the main base, but unfortunately not available to Reynor, who's just taking this time to do as much damage as possible and then also to try and get his economy back up and running. So another base on the way for Reynor, and more creep spread as well. The lurker is still holding that third base hostage. The sixth base, as I said, an orbital, not going to last very long, and the lurkers are just buying so much time. Because even if the ghosts are available, they have the energy, they have the snipes, actually getting them all down on the lurkers does take some time. During that time, Reynor is trying to recover from all the other things that have happened in this game. But he has to be very careful not to over-rely on the lurkers just holding on forever, right? As we can see, Clem is taking this about as patiently as possible. It's a huge concave on top of the lurkers trying to enter into the natural. Now only lurkers on the right side are available, and there are still some ghosts with snipes. So Reynor can only rely on these lurkers for so long, and then he has to worry about still a maxed out Terran force with ghosts. That is the problem. But oh my god, the scan ran out! Oh no! Clem! He went for the scan, then the snipes, then the concave, and that took too long. The scan ran out. Tons of damage done to his army that was already weakened from taking on lurkers to the left side. And now Reynor has a 30 supply lead, base up and running, more workers. He stopped at least 2 bases from mining for Clem, and things have really gone to shit, actually. Clem was so close to finally taking care of all of the problems on his side of the map to only have that happen, and then everything else is going to fall after. The dominoes are falling, guys. 18 SCVs go down as the planetary on the front gets busted by banelings. And these lurkers are still a problem. This is sad, but kind of funny. Like, this has been such a huge problem for Clem. And he was so close to handling it as perfectly as a Terran could. He was so freaking close. But that scan running out was so devastating. And now Reynor has full control over the game. Consistent economy, consistent reinforcements, the ability to pick and choose. All Ling, Hydra, or all lurkers, both still very frightening as the 11 ghosts have had to be used so consistently that they really don't have energy. And they're not guaranteed their snipes either. As soon as they're tickled by a Ling or hit by a Baneling, it gets canceled, right? Most important thing really is that Clem stopped mining from so many bases there. Reynor did expand to one more base, which is great, but if Clem was still mining on his third, his fifth, and his sixth, which by the way just died, and it was an orbital, it could have lifted, then this would probably not be as much of a problem. Clem just needs to hold on and he would remax. But he has lost 3 bases, obviously the mining bases as well, whereas Reynor started to take very cost-efficient trades, or at least more cost-efficient than earlier, I'm guessing. 7,000 resource difference. Fairly good, I would say, for Zerg, but everything, oh my god, and the fungal from behind. This is just so... This is actually the finishing move of Clem's TvZs. Isn't it? He actually won't tap out immediately after that fungal, but he could, and he wouldn't... That wouldn't be incorrect. He just is like, I'm not gonna do it! Not this time! But so many of his games where he loses, he is already losing, and then he gets fungaled perfectly, and then he just taps out. And he's definitely lost this game. The Wouldn't Mind drop didn't do enough damage, that's for sure. And even if he had killed the entire drone line, there's one thing that Reynor has plenty of, and that is drones. I am just so surprised under so much pressure, Reynor was able to get up to almost 17 lurkers at once. They started to die as he kept on building them, so I'm not sure if he ever actually reached the count of 17, but still. The fact that he was able to get more than 10 while under so much pressure is really what killed Clem. Because he had some ghosts. He had his economy. He had a maxed out army. And if 6 lurkers attack to the left and 4 lurkers attack to the right, things are cleaned up so much easier. He abandons the left as he did, wisely, just says, I'll deal with that later, and then he kills the 4 lurkers off to the right, pretty much no problem. Then he handles lurkers on the left, and the middle base never gets destroyed because he has time to respond to it. But because there were just actually so many lurkers, far more than I ever thought was going to be available, lurkers on the backside too, by the way, yeah, Clem folds. And he's just a little more stubborn than usual when it comes to tapping out. There it is, GG. GG's. I think, particularly with that way that it ended, not only did he not want to just end the game, because I swear to God, like 5 of his last 10 TvZs, the game has ended with a fungal, and he was just like, okay, fuck it. But not only does he not want to do that anymore, I really feel like with him taking so long to tap out, he also is kind of in the same boat that I am. Which makes more sense for a player, of course. Where the player doesn't know how much bank Reynor had or how much he was mining exactly. But he's probably like, really? How did I let this game go? I was applying so much pressure, I was taking some decent trades, I was killing bases, I had ghosts, I had 6 bases of my own. How did this guy get to 17 lurkers? What the shit? Game number 2 here, on to Equilibrium. In the top right, it is Team Liquid's Clem. Top left, Basilisk's Reynor. Reynor, with the lurker finishing blow, wins game 1, then moves on to what is presumably his map choice. Now, I've talked about it, but I'll talk about it again. Clem does let this map through. Now, there are only so many choices in a best of 5, especially with the way that the map vetoes do work. So it's this or Radaset usually. But he does let this through, so he finds it more comfortable to play on. And then some of his best victories in this matchup happen on this map too, so I still think it's favorable to Reynor. Absolutely. But not without hope for Clem, who was winning that game. There's one thing I think I can say for certain, because I can't really explain how suddenly the 17 lurkers were afforded, but one thing I can say for certain was that Clem was winning. Clem was taking good engagements, narrowly avoiding terrible ones. He was very close to actually straight up getting bodied at every turn in that game. There's like at least three like oh shit moments where he didn't pick up in the safe amount of time. But he didn't, so that was fine for him. And then he actually did take good engagements. I mean, he really did start to tear Reynor apart. The kill on the spawning pool and the infestation pit really led to a lapse of appropriate defense. So Reynor was struggling with that mass Hydra army to just barely hold on, which then meant that his hive was later, and all the things that come with a hive are later, such as lurkers with upgrades, which are the best form of lurkers. And I really thought that was the biggest proof that Clem is in the lead, right? But then, even as the lurkers finally came on the field, I was just not a believer in them because I figured there wouldn't be enough of them. Clem would see that there was lurkers, go, okay, that's the game we're playing now. Let me check my status. Okay, I'm on 6 bases, 3 planetaries, and I have ghosts on the way. This is fine. But he saw the lurkers, started to accommodate for them, and then suddenly there was 14 lurkers with more on the way. And it did all start with Reynor's decision not to be an entirely passive defensive lurker player. He used a couple of lurkers to help pull to the right side, and then he used the majority of his lurkers to hit the left, which was bound to be an opening, because it's an orbital. And that was accommodated appropriately from the Terran player who said, fair enough, let me hold on here. But then as he was like, let me just get my bearing for a second, Reynor was non-stop. Reynor was like, this is my moment to shine, let's go, let's go, let's go, let's go. And the lurkers really did the trick. I'm not saying that Clem would have won if he did just kill the lurkers on the right side, but there is also that possibility, because he was ahead. There were some mistakes that were allowed for a Terran player, as long as they didn't just get completely frazzled in the chaos and throw their army away. That's kind of what ended up happening. It was like, I gotta kill these freaking lurkers. The scan runs out. It's kind of an amazing timing right there. But it's, if the scan had not run out, I actually think Clem still has a very, very strong chance of leveling that game and winning it. But oh well, enough about that last game. We got this game underway now, 3cc as expected, but this time around it's going to be Hellion Banshee, not Hellion Liberator. Obviously the air path It's always tempting for a Liberator. And there's a lot of space in the back as well on most of these maps, so Liberator can chill if it really wants to. With the Banshee, while it could do the same thing, of course, go over the air path and try and hit the main base, is often more so about attacking on the front lines alongside its Hellions and Reaper buddy. So either in a direct attack that overwhelms a couple of queens that are too few in numbers, or Hellions to the third base, Banshee on top of the fourth. And that's usually the classic dilemma for the Zerg player, especially if they don't have a fast lair build going on, is how do they defend against the Hellions threatening their drones and against the fourth base without a Score Crow, without an Overseer. Well, the Hellions see the fourth base taking out the gold, no surprises there. A little bit of extra damage because queens are on the backside. The Hellion Banshee combination could come in on the front. The Banshee actually to go to the north first, killed a couple of drones, and then skedaddles, of course giving Reynor the information that it was Banshees, which he already knew actually. He already got in there, he saw that it was Banshees, no problem. Cast strength, thank you for the 26 months. And Banshees really just sticking around to perhaps clear up some creep spread or to cancel a fifth base. No such thing is available, so they're going to try their luck in the natural. There's a Spore Crawler, though. The lair's done as well, so no longer... Well, what the hell, Queen? That was weird. I guess he meant the shift Q hold position or something. That Queen's in a very odd spot. But okay, more importantly, drones going down. Hello! 12 drones going down, 14 drones fall before the Hellions are finally taken care of, and I got distracted the same way that Reynor did. I was especially distracted by the held position queen, is my excuse. Which I think died, by the way. I think 2 queens died. Oh no, they both lived. Just kidding. So there's the good news. Both queens survived, but 18 drones went down, and that is a worthwhile sacrifice on the Hellions' part, especially as they were no longer necessary to defend the third base in case Lings ran across the map to be a bunch of dicks. Marine count's good enough to deal with them. And Reynor, well, just took a lot of damage, no? 2 ways about it. Even though he has a gold base to help alleviate the problem, he still would like to be up to 70 drones and fully saturated on all 4 bases. Clem should be happy with this start, especially because I believe he saved both of his Banshees. Yes, he did. Very efficient start. Very efficient. This time around, the armory comes with the 2-2, not for any Hellbats, especially because the Hellions are dead. But this is more interesting than anything that Terran is doing. A Spire's on the way for Reynor. Now, he got a couple of Evolution Chambers, but they didn't actually use them. I wonder if there's something that Clem saw. No. Okay, so he's going to use them eventually. But, so Clem doesn't actually know what the hell his opponent is doing. All he knows is roughly the lair timing because the Banshee saw it. And then as far as the actual technical structures, they could have been elsewhere. But we know that they all were slapped down eventually in the natural. First the Spire, then the Baneling Nest, then the Evolution Chambers, I think, something along those lines. With the emphasis on having resources for mutas as well as centrifugal hooks. And the upgrades will have to come later. 13 mutas all at once is a pretty damn fine number. The problem is, that's a lot of resources put into non-combative units. They don't really want to be in the fight, they want to be harassing. As the Terran player is now all juiced up on 5 racks, 3 bases going on to 4, and is looking to engage multiple times, over and over again. If this is taken care of with the help of Queens and Lings, then the mutas can do their thing, and that's great, but this doesn't seem to be the case, actually, as the Marines slaughter all of the Queens. Reynor, I don't think realized how poorly his Queens were working out against those Marines. Another stim's going to hurt the Marines quite a bit, and they will have to evacuate. The muta's going to be able to chase that down. That's all well and dandy, but 2 more medevacs still alive with Marines inside them to the north as well, and Reynor has already kind of lost the plot. Yeah, okay, and he's already lost the game, actually. GG's. Clem will fight back very quickly in the 1-1. So now tied up 1-1 as we move on to Oceanborn. Top left, Liquid Clem. Bottom right, it is Reynor. Or Basilisk. Clem. Hope he never gets with this polar bear. It's amazing how cute polar bears are, even when you know that they literally look at us as food. They're not even scared of us. They would kill us and they would eat us. But just look how cute they are.
Twitch Prime sub received.
Kilrathi Emperor.
Thank you
Thank you for 5 months. Reynor's been definitely doing mostly this 15 extractor trick. Faster hatch, faster pool. In, like, almost all of his matchups. Seems to be the norm now. Every time I feel like I got a lockdown on the Zerg opener thing and they create a new meta. Come on. It's actually been stirring for quite some time. And it is now pretty much the norm. For Clem, what do we expect? 3cc. As soon as you see that the barracks doesn't go down on low ground, you know what it is. If you want variety in your Terran openers, go watch Beyond. Go watch Beyond on my YouTube channel. Hashtag advertisement. In which he did a 2 base all in, a 8 racks all in, and a... I forget what else it was, but it was all different builds. Very, very different builds. Oh, a Hellbat attack. Yeah, Hellbat attack. All very different things. Now, that's all cool and fun to talk about different things. But despite Byeon being the amazing player in top 3... Yeah, top 3 Terran in Korea. Top 5 in the world. Top 4 in the world. Anyway, despite him being top 5 player of all time. You know, I don't actually think that's necessarily the quote-unquote correct way to go. What is correct is always debatable, but the Hellbat attacks, so much more often than not, are very flimsy. The 8 racks, I think, still has some merit, and it is just mostly Clem who doesn't like do them, but I think they've also been kind of figured out from the Zerg side. 2 base follow-ups seem really bad, even if Beyond occasionally wins with them. I'm still gonna say that. So yeah, even though Clem's build order variety can be limited, actually a very interesting build here from Reynor. It obviously still gives him a lot to work with. Now this is different. Clem sees the lack of a 3rd hatch, figures there must be one thing, and that one thing is a... Well, it actually can be 2 things. It's either a fast Spire, in which Reynor did try and play 2-base Spire versus Clem last week and did not work out very well. But he did try. Or it could be this, which is a Roachwarn play. In either case, the Cyclones coming out first can be helpful. The Roaches obviously can't catch up to them. There is no speed, which I'm not sure. Yeah, Clem doesn't know about no speed, actually. But if it was a Spire, then maybe they're being a little greedy about their production of units, and so there wouldn't even be that many Lings. So the Cyclones kind of feeling like they can be over on this side of the map. If Lings are on the way, Hellions are being produced as well. I will say I'm almost always a Debbie Downer about this opener. The Cyclones first, then the Hellions. That begins to always just be a disaster, but it's usually a disaster because of Speedlings. Without Speedlings, we can see the Cyclones are getting some freaking value here. They've killed Queens, they've killed Ravagers, they're going to kill an Overlord, another Ravager's going to fall. I mean, this is actually such a disastrous start for Reynor. Holy shit. Because Clem opted into the thing that I think is usually terrible. These 2 Cyclones have been freaking legit, man. Another Queen goes down. And there's no fear of being chased after. So even if these Cyclones were to die, they certainly have done enough damage to warrant their creation. It's not like their lack of availability would actually kill Clem. There's always a fear, of course, that Reynor is just going to be going into a lot of Roaches and Ravagers, one that Clem rightfully respects, so a couple extra Cyclones would be nice to have. But you would think he then would get a tank and Banshees, but he actually didn't do that. So, okay, maybe the Cyclones did have to survive, just to ensure that Clem didn't die to a counter. But the counter would have been with slow Roaches after the initial ones had died. So you know that any further Roach production is going to take 5 ever to get across the map. And then there's no Speedling reinforcements, apparently, which are usually the real kickers to the all-in from the Zerg. Hellions take a chance, grab a couple more drones, also get scouting done. They see that it is still a lackluster economy from the Zerg and a decent amount of roaches and Ravagers being rebuilt that really does show intention to be aggressive. But at this point in time, Clem should be feeling very comfortable. Again, still slow roaches, no fast Ling reinforcements. A tank is out, the Cyclones were repaired. Bunker still in play too, I like that. He canceled or salvaged one of them and left one up. A really smart play from Clem on top of the excellent micro and maybe somewhat fortunate decision to go into Cyclones. Maybe he did go for them because he saw the lack of the third hatch, but either way, it was a good decision. And now it kind of feels like Reynor is already dead. Not nearly as much as he was already dead in the last game, mind you. That last game, his tap out was very appropriate, but it does not feel like a very good game for the Zerg, even though Clem did just get a little overly aggressive right there. He doesn't have his own upgrades, doesn't have combat shields, and so chasing after Roach Ravager might be a little too much. But he is the evacuation with the medivacs, no problem. Continuing to build tanks as he figures it is really a Roach game. Definitely, for sure. And so tanks are the wiser thing to do here. And now, exactly as I was about to say it, now is the time for Clem to try and determine if it's going to be a Roach all-in or if it's going to be into a hive. That's why he scans. His scan was absolutely perfectly timed. Not only did it see the hive start, it saw the infestation pit, which is already a pretty good sign, right? The Hydralisk Den is coming down, so we're going to have actually a very classic composition of Roach Hydra into Lurkers. I love that Reynor is going into Infestors, because this is, I feel like, what buys time. This is the comeback maneuver for Zerg players. It works wonderfully with the corrosive biles, and it's just a threat that the Terran player has to consider when they think they have the numbers against the Roaches. Because as far as sizing up the bio tank engagement versus the Roach Ravager, it's kind of simple math almost. Fungals included changes it up a lot. Ditto with Banelings, which is why sometimes when you see them go into that hive, they also are adding on speed, also adding on Lings, and also adding on a Baneling Nest. But good fungal, good fungal. Good repeat fungals as well, not gonna allow the evacuation. And 16 Marines dying right there for almost nothing is a waste of life. But it's one that Clem can absolutely afford based on the way the opener went. And also now the burrow fungals have been revealed, so Clem should be a little more on guard against them. Overall, not the biggest thing to be disappointed by. Clem's onto his additional racks. He's onto his 4th base, again with a very hefty tank count, 6 of them, and continuing to pump out 2 at a time. Not going to transition over into Widow Mines since he's seen no indication that that would be necessary. Widow Mines really the best use against Ling Baneling, isn't it? Although they can pop off on Roaches, they can pop off on Hydras, and no matter what you're using as a Zerg player, Widow Mines are fucking annoying. Generally, if you're going to go right up into Roach Hydra, tanks are the way to go. So you also see him getting +1 vehicle weapons, which happens pretty rarely for Clem. Triple drop will absolutely get the cancel here, but keep in mind that Reynor's trying to go for a very cost-efficient style of play. He hasn't had to sacrifice a lot of Banelings and a lot of Lings. He's not had to worry about larva being an issue either, not at all in this game. So losing hatcheries like that, I mean, it's still not ideal. It's not the worst situation. As long as he can eventually take some type of good trade with his eventual Roach Hydra Lurker Ball. They got Lurker upgrades on the way, 2-2 about even, actually. Maybe even a little farther ahead than Clem's 2-2. And Reynor has certainly recovered from the disastrous early game, but he really isn't playing, I think, the game that he was thinking of. We're doing some vision exercise, and you're like, okay, game 3 is going to be my game, guys. It's going to be awesome. I'm going to start off great, and it's going to be super cool when I go for Roaches. Well, that was not the case at all. Where Reynor is able to overcome the bad start, change up his plans, perhaps, and play into Roach Hydra Lurker. Probably less so on the Roaches as time goes on, but another Shark attack on the bottom side is going to push away the triple drop. Some Marines were saved that time around at the very least. Until Clem has all of those extra orbitals with extra scans. He's not going to be able to just scan willy-nilly to stop those infestors from unburrowing on top of his army, is he? We'll get there eventually, but we are getting to that point in which Clem has to kind of wait for that safety. He's going to have to play a very much longer game than the first 5 minutes of this game would indicate. You see, they start like that, where the Cyclones are just battering down the Roach numbers, then they Roach attack that never begins gets thwarted. You think, okay, the Zerg player is really in a poor position. And I'd still say that he was. But it's not so poor of a position that Clem can just go ahead and cut the head off. You can see that Clem has identified this game as one in which it would be all too easy to think, I'm ahead, I'm ahead, I'm ahead. Let's just go ahead and go for the gut punch with my 10 tanks, my 12 ghosts, my however many bio units, and I'm just going to win. I'm just going to push and win. That's how a game can maybe get to a point in which it's no longer good for him. Because he pushes into lurkers that he doesn't scan appropriately, or he gets counterattacked, or run-byed, or Nidus wormed, and suddenly 10 lurkers pop up and kill him. That doesn't feel so good. So he has said, instead of unsieging these tanks and moving them all forward and trying to go for a big old push, he is going to go for the, well, it's almost spoon Terran to give a real throwback to the oldsters in the chat right here. Those who have watched Thorzane on Ohana. Those are some long freaking games, I'll tell you what. Which is that you almost never push out with the main army. Drops are always good. Go ahead and do drops if you want to, but you never push out with the main army, and you just continue to expand. The Zerg player could kind of do the same thing and be like, okay, well, you're not pushing out. I'm not going to push into you because try and break through the Sim City, right? But I can also take bases. I can get technology. I can do Nidus Worm shenanigans at the very least. Kind of the drops of the Zerg, I suppose. And I can add all my technology. Lurkers and Brood Lords, and I think the Lurkerden got sniped. Yeah, he had to rebuild it. And all that good stuff. But then, after both of you agree, no rush 20 minutes, which is what we're getting to apparently, who ends up being the favored player in that position? When almost nothing else has happened in this game. The Terran player has freely taken their side of the map, their minerals and gas, and the Zerg player has to play out a potential 40 or 50 minute game. Trivia question, guys. Oh my god, the chain. Oh no. Oh no. Oh no, the Nidus Worm. Oh no, the Nidus Worm. Okay. This Nidus Worm's actually not that big of a deal. I know it looks scary, but because Clem is playing the turtle game and he has Ghost already, it's not bad at all. The biggest problem is usually the other attack alongside this, but he also has such good SimCity that the second attack, even if it had been in position, I don't think it would have done particularly well. But yeah, the answer to the trivia question, guys, is that the Zerg player is in a worse position. Because if they don't start winning engagements and winning them hardcore, they are the ones who are more likely to run out of resources. So unless they can change this dynamic here, look how comically small the resources lost are in this game. If they can't start to change the resource loss dynamic, then the map doesn't go on forever. They can't mine forever. If Zerg could mine forever, they would be the broken race. If they're not already. Anyway. But they can't, so. Now, Oceanborn is a rather large map, and it does have a decent amount of bases. Almost all of the maps really having around, I think, 14 in total, I want to say. But, you know, so that means we're not going to run out of resources all that quickly for the Zerg player, but it is absolutely heading to that type of game. It's going to be down to the resources. And Clem's just going to have more. Clem continuing to have the better resource trade and the very limited trade they've been doing. He's setting up super defensively so that there's no pop-up surprises. We saw a couple of scans go down on the technology as well. He wants to make sure it doesn't get blindsided by any type of transition. Ultras suddenly, and you know, 10, 12 Ultras pop out, 15 Broodlords pop out. Don't want to be surprised by that, even though Ghosts take care of both things. I know, Ghosts are pretty cool. It's true. But yeah, you still want to know which one it is. And I really got to say, I think, theoretically, this is a win for the Terran. Theoretically. If no pop-up infestors happen, if no, you know, 20 lurkers and 50 cracklings decimate the... And even then, I'm not sure that would be enough. But, you know, nothing extreme happens. This is a winning position for the Terran player. You cannot see many ways in which the Zerg can win out against this situation. They can match it for a very long time, and they can be hopeful, but it's really freaking difficult to break a Terran player who has set up so easily into the Turtle Terran. Usually the issue is that the setup isn't there. They haven't expanded as aggressively. They had to trade a little bit more. They lost map control faster, so the Zerg actually expanded faster, which is usually what happens, but not in this game. Both of the players have an ideal start, so then it's like, you know, the Zerg gets a real chance to try and overwhelm them before they get to their very turtled up Terran position. Well, this couldn't have happened because Reynor was just in such a weird position for the first 10 minutes. 13 SCVs go down, but I think Clem might even be okay with that. Did he actually? I think he might have actually sacrificed them. So yeah, he'll probably go down to as low as 50, maybe even lower as the game goes on. Oh, tries to get the EMP. Actually does not do so. Nice counter micro there from Reynor. They're going to start butting heads a lot more when it comes down to these contested bases, the bases which could theoretically be either players. But with the Terran's ability to leapfrog with siege units, tanks, and liberators, missile turrets, and ghosts, and planetaries, usually they win out. Reynor needs to make sure that the planetary never gets up on the high ground, otherwise he will be out of luck. This is not exactly a break, though, is it? Parasitic bomb, I think maybe killed something, but it's actually just hanging there. And that was hardly anything really lost on the side of Clem. The missile turret, I guess? How many orbitals does Clem have? 10 orbitals! Not too shabby. He's going on 11, by the way. Bester about to get in a scan range. Will Clem notice? Will Clem notice? Will Clem notice? Clem did not notice. But he's kind of pre-splitting a little bit anyway, just to ensure that he never gets totally bopped. And they know to pre-split, of course. Every professional Terran knows to pre-split. It's just whether or not the game is getting too hectic so that they don't remember. This is a really lovely position for a Terran player. That's kind of abusive. Hacks. Upgrades continuing on for both players as well. Just assume that everyone's going to get maxed out upgrades, guys. Caduceus Reactor after Liberator range. Love to see it. Oh, building armor is on the way. Nice fungal on the Ghost. Those will all die. This will still end up being a trade, obviously. There's just so many Terran units. But at least this trade ends with Reynor being able to kill a base. Yes. No. Maybe so. Okay, if he doesn't kill it quickly, then the rest of Clem's army is going to arrive and stop it from being killed at all, and that's exactly what has happened here. The Ghost arrived, the fungal didn't hit the heart of the Ghosts, and unfortunately the rest of the Zerg army just won't do the trick. Reynor obviously remaxing faster, so the supplies look totally fine, but in terms of the actual position of things, that wasn't great. Reynor didn't even kill the planetary. It turns into a planetary, which is another thing that the Terran doesn't have to worry about. You know, the whole scan for the birdling, land, turn into planetary, wait out. It's done. And now he gets to have this entire high ground position. That's incredibly scary as a Zerg player, especially when their contested base isn't even mining. And they need more than just one extra base to their opponent. Now they're on even bases and actually one less because Reynor is not mining. So, yeah. Yeah. Nice from coming in as a reinforcement or escape path. Either way, I like it, though. I like it a lot. Momentary heart attack to Clem, and he's like, where the hell was it? Unfortunately, as Corruptors and Vipers come in to take care of the lib abuse, Ghosts will help them a lot and continue the abuse. I think the Abduct can come in safely, but I don't think the Corruptors can is the problem. Oh, okay. Liberators as well. No scan on top of the Lurkers, so the Liberators aren't killing them as they could be. I knew a nuke was coming down somewhere. There it is. Good evacuation from Reynor. I mean, at this point, I think Reynor knows that he's kind of playing a losing game. There has simply been no openings for Reynor. And without any opening, it's just a numbers resource game. A couple of misclicks happened there. First he turned into a Broodlord, then he turned into a lair. I'm not sure, but anyway. Obviously, the base being taken on the high ground was bad news, because that means the base is successfully taken, and Reynor can't crack it anymore. But it also is bad news, because Clem is now just one hop away from killing his opponent's hatchery, now putting Reynor down by 2 bases. More units getting sniped, and I think we see Reynor just kind of losing willpower at this point. I think he is also planning a Broodlord transition. Yes, absolutely, we can see that here. But I wouldn't be surprised if he's already a little deflated in his seat, you know? Not the type to give up immediately. He's no Idra, but this is a very tough game to watch. And even tougher game to play on the side of the Zerg. It's not even just watching a train crash in slow motion, it's watching the train come at you in slow motion. Okay, the fungals. Okay. Pretty good fungal on top of the Vikings, but not a whole lot of punish, actually. Vikings, most of them live, although they are injured. It is also amazing to see Vikings as a part of the Terran anti-air. You know, they're just so often easily outnumbered in spellcasts, and usually a temporary measure, if anything. Ghosts are the more reliable option. Now, we're gonna have 10 Broodlords. That's an okay number, but really not all that impressive. The only way that's impressive is if the fungal also comes down on all of these ghosts. 24 ghosts in play, by the way, guys. EMP on top of a burrowed infester. Looking at EMP, perhaps, if he can, on top of the Vipers. Actually doesn't bother. He had all of his snipes lined up and no fungal that was about to hit him. The infester's coming in way too late. Almost nukes his own ghost army, by the way. Holy shit. But the ghosts go for a last-second split as Reynor just full sent it, and that is not going to be good enough for the Zerg. Clem, Spoon, tearing it up. We'll take the 2-1 lead. And now it could be the final game. In the top right of Solaris, it is Clem. Bottom left, it is Reynor. Looking kind of similar to last week's, if I remember correctly, where I believe the game that Reynor won was a hard-fought comeback to lurkers hitting the right moment. Similar to game 1 of this series. I don't remember if it was an almost comeback or it was a comeback, but... And then the rest of the game's looking very Clem-sided, actually, as Reynor experiments a little, basically. He did experiment last week with a 2-base Spire play. This week, he experimented with a 4-base, macro Spire play on Equilibrium. That didn't work out very well, as he lost drones as well. So it wasn't a good setup anyway. Then in last game, he tried a 2-base Roach setup, which really just did not do well against the Cyclone opener that Clem went for. Perhaps based off of seeing that it was a late third hatchery, figured that he would be able to find some damage with it. I don't think he knew for a fact that it wasn't speed, but if he did, then yeah, Cyclones make a hell of a lot of sense. And if he didn't, that wouldn't be the first time that he moved out with only Cyclones against possible Speedlings. It's just that the other times, there were Speedlings. And the Cyclones get bopped, get immediately surrounded, and I freaking hate that opener. And in that game, Speedling-less Reynor 2-base Roach opener took so much damage to Cyclones. So much. Completely interrupted his entire plan. The attack was flimsy AF, and his total pacing in that game was just incredibly thrown off. He did exactly what a Zerg player should do to make a comeback happen, so you don't die in the mid-game. But Clem then recognized that was what was happening and was like, I don't have to kill you anyway. I have practiced and almost perfected the late game Turtle Terran. Maru, arguably still the better player at that in particular. But Clem's right up there and had no problem playing out a game such as that, in which you could just tell that Reynor had already lost any of the usual possibilities that a Zerg would have. He had already lost the possibility to overwhelm him. Oh, 2 base play. Overwhelm him in a, Why did that gas seem so fast? Oh, yes it is. Oh, yeah, it is. Yeah, he 2 base play. Yeah, I don't, I saw like the minerals creeping up and I was confused for a second. But yeah, it's a 2 base play actually. This is something that Clem doesn't do very often. I'd actually say almost never. I'm surprised. But anyway, to finish my thought, Reynor never got the chance to overwhelm him, have a higher supply than him, threaten his expansion process, or get, bases ahead even. And that's just not a good sign for Zerg. So a fresh start for game number 4, and Reynor could absolutely bring this back, but Clem mixing things up a little bit, going for a 2 base build as opposed to just quickly into the 3rd CC, so the Banshee's going to be arriving a little bit faster. I don't think this will turn into anything more, but already we have a problem as drones are dying, speed is not done, and the Queen's not in position. Only one Queen was there to help. So much for a fresh start. This is more like a new start, a la Arrested Development. 8 drones going down, only 1 Hellion sacrificed to do it. I mean, that's not what you want. You don't get the Italian hand motion, whatever it is, for this game. If the French had a similar motion, they'd be doing it right now. Is there an Italian hand expression for God, I'm screwed? Especially as 5 Hellions race in against only a certain lackluster number of Lings. Ay. Little block here is kind of cute, but it's only going to block for so long. We still don't have Lings popping. And oh my god. Oh my god. We had a distraction Banshee. Reynor stopped splitting, stopped moving his drones. And if he just tapped out now, I wouldn't blame him. I mean, my goodness. The Banshee is here. Cloak's gonna finish in 6 seconds. There aren't any spore crawlers. This is a disaster. This is like watching me play Zerg. That's a real insulting thing to say. I'm sorry, Reynor. This is just one thing led to another. It can happen to the best of them, apparently. Can happen to the best of them. Oh, just tap out. Just let it go. Oh, no. It's just a disaster. The Banshee's gonna die, I guess, but it's totally worth it. Banshee in the natural killed a couple more drones. I'm really surprised that Reynor's still in this game. This is horrifically bad. And the fact that Clem didn't have a 3cc as fast as usual behind it does not make up for 27 drone kills, plenty of lost mining time, missed creep tumors, further damage, no technology, no army. I mean, this is one of the worst games I've seen for Reynor, honestly. And I think that's why he doesn't want to tap out. He wants to try and make this at least look okay. And prove that, he can make a comeback happen. And I would absolutely believe in a comeback. I could believe in him losing 11 drones to Hellions and then 8 drones to the Banshees and being really thrown off and chaos every which way you look. I could believe in a comeback of that size, kind of. I don't believe in a comeback of this size. I'm actually not sure how Reynor defends the first attack. The only good news, apparently, is that Clem did have a slightly later 3rd CC. And I think he did mess up his macro with all the micro he was doing. You can see that his SimCity isn't nearly as pretty as it usually is when he does a 3cc build. His medevac, his second medevac was a little bit later, so he messed up a little bit. But it doesn't, that's... What do you do about this? You have no Banley Nest. And Clem knows it, too. Clem literally just walks into the natural. GG's. Not the strong finish we were hoping for, but yet another Clem 3-1 victory against Reynor. And Reynor just, he has like a couple of incredible ZVTs. And then it does seem like he's more prone to just collapsing for whatever reason. These last couple of weeks anyway. So I don't know what he has to fix, but it's something. No shame in losing to Clem, of course, in a best of 5. But it's just some of these games end up really looking like disasters. Which is uncommon for Reynor. It happens. It happens. GG's. Congrats to Clem. Takes another first place in the weekly.